Hey everybody, Rhadamant here. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of Stationeers. So last episode we finished up the solar logic systems, and this episode I started off by doing some mining off screen so that you all didn't have to wait to watch me just mine some ore. That's boring. What we'll be working on is making our beautiful little base airtight with atmosphere. So that is our goal. So here is all the ores I've mined, and what we need to do is control the furnace a little bit more than we are currently doing. So let me set this up. So what I'm going to do is grab my wrench here, and I am going to set a pipe down like this. I'm not actually going to worry about input on this, so it's going to look something like this. There we go. Lovely. Perfect. So what I did to the auto lathe is I had that set up to make a passive vent, and we need to vent out all of the gases inside of the furnace because the gases that are left after running the furnace for a bit are not actually ignitable, meaning that it will be pressurized, but it won't be warm enough for smelting. And in order to do that, we need a passive vent, and in order to get a passive vent, we need the hydraulic pipe bending unit. Now, while we wait for that, I guess what I could do is start old school smelting iron. Iron is pretty quick to smelt in the arc furnace, so I'm going to arc furnace it. And actually, let's go ahead and get some beautiful walls up where our hydroponics will be, just for a point of reference. So this is going to be a very, very, very small base, just sort of a starter base, and I'm using the mouse wheel to set up composite windows, like that. So we'll have 4 little windows. So what a plant needs is CO2 in the atmosphere, temperature between 20 to 50 Celsius, and water in its piping or plumbing, and a direct line to sunlight. Now, there are many different ways to farm. I'm going to be using the hydroponic basin method, but there are other methods that change some of the requirements. A lot of the other methods will automatically, for instance, provide sunlight. But what I'm going to be doing is sort of as close to literally putting potatoes into the ground. And I'm not going to put any of the glass in the windows there because we want freedom of movement until we're ready to actually glass that up. And I guess while I'm standing around waiting for that hydraulic pipe bender unit, I'll go ahead and eat. So, as I mentioned in this game, you start off with a quite an abundance of oxygen, but a very limited supply of power and a somewhat limited supply of food. So food is going to be the next thing we run out of, which is why I've made it the focus for survival right now. So what I'm doing here is laying out some piping, and this pipe will contain water in it. This will be our run of water. So to designate it as water, let's go ahead and, oh, here's our pipe bender unit, perfect. Let's build and wire this baby up. So we're going to need to build it iron and plastic. So here's some iron and plastic. First, we're going to take the iron and a welding torch, and then put the torch away, grab cables, put the cables away, put the iron frames away, grab the plastic and the torch, put the torch away, grab the screwdriver, and we're done. I know I made that look very fast and simple. Once you build a bunch of these, they all sort of all the benches are kind of the same and quick like that. Wire it up. Done. And then let's shove some iron in there. Oh, and the first thing I want to build from this is a passive vent. And that will allow us to smelt once it gets dark. I gotta wait for sunset to smelt because I don't have a vacuum room for my furnace, so the volatiles and oxides that are in my hand will inevitably melt. I'm gonna flick the valve here, and this will outgas all of the gases that are in the furnace so that I can use the furnace again. So basically what ends up happening is when you smelt, a lot of pollutants, which is labeled as X in this game. I can't tell you exactly what the pollutants are. They're just a byproduct of the smelting. A lot of pollutants will form, and the pollutants that form aren't combustible. So what ends up happening is you can't really use your furnace until you outgas your furnace. Now there's other ways to manage a furnace. The easiest way that I found is just to let it outgas like this. Easy peasy. And now our furnace is just about empty, and it's just about nighttime, which would allow us to do some smelting. So let's switch belts so we have access to our oxides and volatiles. And additionally, let's get one more passive vent out here. All right, and this passive vent is going to go here. This will make sense once I complete the airlock, for sure. Okay. Because iron is pretty efficient to smelt in the arc furnace, I'm not going to bother running it through the furnace because the furnace, we're just going to focus on the tougher metals. So we want 1 part oxygen, 2 part volatile. So 1 oxide and 2 part volatile. Burn that. It heats up, it pressurizes, and then we'll start putting the copper. Make sure not to mix metals here. We can actually just open the mold here, so as soon as the metals process, they can then be plopped out as ingots. And as you can see, I'm stacking all of my materials into the pipe bender unit, because that is what we're going to be using next. So there's the furnace. The rest of the gases will outgas so we can use it again. Let's turn off the arc furnace. So the first things I want to do is to create tank connectors, and we want 2 of them at least. Now initially, I'm only really going to build my hydroponic farm to cater to the plants. I'm not going to worry about my own needs, i.e. oxygen. I'm just going to make sure that the plants get what it needs. So I'm going to build 2 tanks here, or tank connectors. So a tank connector is, and I sort of placed it wrong, so let me fix that. Tank connectors allows you to build tanks, which are portable storage items that that you can use to move or to store gases or liquids in the case of water. All right, there we go. Next up, we want some more piping, and we're going to want a lot of piping. And then additionally, let's go ahead and find our blue spray paint. So while we're making a lot of pipes, I'm going to spray paint. I'm going to spray paint this pipe blue so that we can remember that it carries water. This is more for your benefit than for my own. We have a limited amount of blue paint, so we might not be able to get the entire pipe. No, we were able to get the entire pipe. I'm going to leave the rest of the paint here, like a true graffiti artist, just sort of littering once I'm done. And then let's go ahead and crank out 2 atmospherics kits. So an atmospheric kit can act as an air conditioner, it can act as a filtration unit, or it can act as an electrolyzer, which will turn water into hydrogen and oxygen. It splits the H. Oh, I made 3 atmospheric kits. That's fine. I can save one for later. So what we're going to do is use this filtration unit, and we're going to put one here. So let's move the pipes and grab another filtration unit or another atmospherics kit and put one here. So now they're nicely laid out. Now, this filter here is going to filter water out. So the way this works is... Oh, I need to move this back one spot. There we go. The way this works is it takes in any gas, you put filters into the side here, and then if, let's say you have a carbon dioxide filter, the filtered gases are going to then be on the output, and the unfiltered gas is everything else. And then at the end of it, we have waste gases. So what I'm doing here is, let me fix this a bit. Corner, come on, there we go. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. We are laying out our CO2 and water filtration. The other atmospherics kit that I accidentally manufactured, we can just put away. I'm not going to need it for a bit. We're going to need some more pipes. And what I can do for right now is to grab the spray paint can and spray the rest of these pipes blue to indicate that they contain water. I think that's a good color. And now we're out of blue paint. Then additionally, we are going to send CO2 in as well. So this is going to be a T-junction. And then we're going to run a pipe over here. And like I said, I know it seems confusing if you've never played Stationeers. Even if you have played Stationeers, you might not end up making your initial farms this way. But this is just the quickest, or one of the quickest ways that I've found to make a farm, while also making it so that it's not convoluted as to what I'm doing. That's a big difference. I could have everything be a little bit more condensed and compacted, but as a net result, if I did it that way, had it more condensed and compacted, it might be really confusing as to what I'm doing, which is not something I want to cause to all of you. All right, so I'm going to wrench the frame out of place here so I can work in this area. And this is going to be an input of carbon dioxide. So I'm going to make a T-junction here. And another T-junction. Maybe that's not exactly where I want it. Let's go ahead and smelt this, or weld this back into place. And before I go any further, we need some pumps and filters, or vents. So the way I want to fill my room full of gases is through a pressure regulator, and we're going to want 2 of these, and a volume pump. So the way a pressure regulator works is it can control the amount of air that it fills up. So if you have a pressure regulator to a tank and you set the pressure regulator to 100 kPa, it's going to fill that tank to 100 kPa. That's the way they work. A volume pump doesn't care about the pressure down pipe. It will just keep moving air. So the volume pump works faster than the pressure regulator. So it's sort of, let's say we had a fire, you could pump out or use an activent to vent out all of the oxygen out of a room if you wanted to. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to have a pressure regulator set like this, and then I'm going to have a volume pump on the other side with the arrows pointing upwards, set like this. So that means I will need to change my pipe network a little bit to accommodate for this new layout. And a T-junction. So this here is going to be a T-junction. Okay. Actually, this should face up, not down. So I need to get electricity down below. All right, let's get some more pumps. And also, I can go ahead and cannibalize this because I'm not going to be using that furnace for smelting anymore. It's only going to be for atmospherics. It will be a dedicated atmospherics furnace. All right, and then I'm going to have a passive vent like that. So what this will do is these pipes will contain carbon dioxide and will control how much carbon dioxide enters the base. So I'm setting up this pressure regulator for 110, and I'm going to set this volume pump for just 10 liters. The volume pump won't normally be on. That's sort of like an emergency, fill this room full of atmosphere. But the pressure regulator will be on at all times. And then additionally, this might not make sense to even veteran players just yet, but I promise you I'll explain why I have this pipe here in just a moment. And we need yet some more, oh, not volume pumps. We need pipes. Let's get them cranked out. I'm sure my suit's battery is a little low, so let's go ahead and do a switch. Then additionally, what we need to do is we need to make sure that excess gases from this room are then vented back out. So what I'm doing here is setting up, let's set up a corner piece. I don't think I can build there. No, I can't. So let's go ahead and put it maybe on the roof. Maybe up above. Like that. And we'll run the pipes on the ceiling. And then over here, what we're going to want is an active vent and pressure regulator. So this pressure regulator will be a back pressure regulator that aims up like that, and then we're going to want an active vent. So let's go ahead and make another active vent. We're actually going to need a bunch of active vents, but I'm only going to make them when I need to use them. So an active vent, another passive vent. So I'm laying out the active vent like this. Actually, it could be laid out like that. That saves a little bit of room. Let's grab this passive vent. And once I have this all laid out, I can sort of explain the logic behind it all. This will be a T-junction. So the idea here is if I really need to pull air out of this room, like it's becoming so pressurized, the windows are about to blow out, I can trigger this active vent and it will start to suck air out of the room. But normally what will happen is the back pressure regulator will regulate the pressure of the room so that anytime there's over 108 pressure, it will pull air out into this pipe. And then to fill the room, if I really emergency need volume because the plants are dying because there's not enough pressure in the room, I can turn on the volume pump and that will pump air out of this vent. And then normally the pressure regulator will try to keep it up to 110. So the pressure regulator and the back pressure regulator are constantly working against one another, but that's to create a flow in the room so that we're constantly filtering the gas in the room. Because what will end up happening when we have our plants is the plants will be continually turning carbon dioxide into oxygen. So if left alone, the room will eventually turn from 100% carbon dioxide to 100% oxygen, given enough time. And we don't want that either, because then our plants will die. They will wither because they will not be getting the oxygen they need. So that is the purpose of all of those fancy networky doohickeys, to use, complex terms. So this is sort of the plumbing of this room. We have the inflow and the outflow. And of course it needs cabling and all that, but at least the layout is there. Next, we're going to make 5 radiators. Oops. So radiator helps to... Oh, and we need some steel for this, which is in this printer. A radiator will help to balance the temperature between an ambient room and the gas that's attached to the radiator's pipe. So I'm going to be putting radiators like that. And the idea behind this is to warm up the CO2 tank and the water tank that we have to room temperature. The water tank isn't necessary because for whatever reason, the developer decided that water that is below 0 is fine for plants, but I like to do it anyway, just as a nice measure. So what will end up happening is all of the gases in the CO2 tank will eventually, very, very gradually be warming up to room temperature, whatever temperature I set this room at. Same is true with the water here. Now the last things we need in this crazy network is heating and cooling. So we need a wall heater and a wall cooler. The wall heater is one of the most power-hungry things that you can use. So ideally, you don't want to design rooms that need an insane amount of heating because it's expensive. Wall coolers are a lot less expensive. It's cheaper to cool than to heat, which is weird because in real life, I think AC is probably, I don't know, maybe they're about the same. So the wall heater's input is just power. So we can set it up here, that's fine. And then the wall cooler's really, really different, and I'm gonna have to set a considerable amount of plumbing to have the wall cooler operate, but I'm gonna put that there as well. So as you can see here, I have a lot of the power and data all sort of facing one another, so it all needs to get wired up. Speaking of wired up, let's make a gas canister, and then a canister holder. Or canister storage. And then some more pipes. Ooh, that thing like flew out at my face. And for now, I'm gonna plop this down here. And I'll probably also need one more radiator, providing I have room. Yeah, I do have room. Perfect. Now I'm going to need more pipes than that, but I'm not going to manufacture them just yet. So when we airlock, I like to store my gas in a canister rather than back into the room, because if we pump, when we enter the base, when we exit the base, what ends up happening is all of the atmosphere in this room, in the airlock, will be then pumped out this vent, and if we pump it back into our hydroponics, it will pressurize the hydroponics beyond tolerance. But if we pump all of the airlock into a canister, it just makes the canister full. It's a lot more... I much prefer it that way. That way we're not constantly pressurizing and depressurizing our farm. We're just pressurizing and depressurizing a canister, which the ramifications are a lot less. And then additionally, I'm going to put a radiator here so the gas in the canister warms to room temperature as well. So at this point, what I need to set up my cooler. And then also make sensors for it, because I'm going to have my room be temperature controlled automatically, as that's probably certainly higher tech. So I'm going to run pipes here like this. And the way the cooler works is it uses the air that's in the pipe to cool the room that the cooler is in, but the air doesn't mix. So the air in this pipe here doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is just fill it with atmosphere and put a bunch of radiators on it. That's usually how I do my cooling. And it's very crude and ugly, but for a starter base, just because I'm trying to fight hunger, that's how I'm going about it. And as you can see, my big battery is slowly filling up with power, gradually, of course, but we will also add some additional solar power panels to it. All right, and that's probably enough. So now, as you can see, why I did all my we're almost out of gold, so I'll just make as many radiators as we can afford. I guess I didn't mine enough gold. We might actually need, we will absolutely need more gold, but I'll probably not need it before this is done. So we're adding radiators to this, and that will keep it so that the plumbing in the heat that we pull away from this wall cooler then doesn't superheat, because then it won't be able to be used as a wall cooler. So I know there's a crazy ton of stuff going on, and I've not done a wonderful job of explaining it all, but this isn't a tutorial series. This is just me trying to play, and given that I'm strapped for time, as this is a survival game with pretty steep survival odds, I need to, of course, survive. All right, so next up, we have connected the furnace to our filtration systems, and this way we'll be able to melt ices and fill our tanks that we have not yet made with water and CO2. No, I don't want a tank connector. I want a portable tank. My bad. Portable tank. And also, we don't have an input working just yet either. So this pipe here needs to run all the way to the input, all the way to here, which is a lot more pipes. And as far as I know, oh, there's a little bit of gold here. But we are running low on both time and resources. Although we've gotten pretty far. So these portable tanks are just big, hold, empty tanks that we can then fill with whatever we want. So this one's going to get filled with water. And let's cancel this. This one's going to get filled with carbon dioxide. All right. We'll need a passive vent. And then a bunch of pipes. This isn't the cleanest, least resourced way to do it, as I've said, but I'm setting it up like this because it is probably easiest to understand. So the way this works is the gas coming in here gets filtered. It will first filter out any CO2 and put the CO2 into this tank and this pipe network. Anything that isn't CO2 runs through this pipe, goes into here. Anything that is water goes into this network and this tank. Anything that isn't water just gets outgassed back to Mars. Meaning nitrogen and oxygen, which are useful gases that I'll want to collect later on. But the more filters we add, the more power it requires, and the more resources it requires, and the longer it takes to set up, and therefore the less efficient it is when you're have a very limited amount of food, as that is. I'm just trying to feed myself. I'm not trying to solve permanent, hunger issues or anything like that. This is all for food. So we're gonna have a admittedly ugly, twisted pipe network, and this pipe will then pull air from my farm and put it back into the filtration. Meaning that any oxygen that is generated gets to be then filtered out of the farm. The farm, ideally, will be mostly carbon dioxide. So let's put a little corner piece in here. And then another thing is I have most of my plumbing and electrical exposed so that if we have a blowout, like if something gets overpressurized and ruptures, or if a cable gets burned out, we'll know. Because when you put everything internal, if you have a burned out cable, then you have to go rooting through your walls to find it, which is a real pain. Well, I am just about out of time, so we're going to have to finish up the beautiful hydroponics filtration network next episode. I'm sure you all have many, many, many questions. What I aim to do is get this fully built, and then to very slowly sort of explain how it all works. Once again, even though this is in a tutorial series, I don't want to leave all the new people in the dark, because atmospheric filtration and power automation are the two biggest milestones in this game as far as I'm concerned, so it's important that you understand them thoroughly. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Adios.